To be the home state of Mitt Romney, and many people say if he doesn't win there, that it's a really bad sign. The numbers have tightened up there quite a bit. Right now in one poll, Santorum leads Romney by 3. I'll make that 4, and the other, it's all tied up. So what's going on in the state of Michigan? You know, somebody would know is Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, a Republican congressman from Michigan's 11th Congressional District and a good friend of this program. Congressman McCotter, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
So what's going on in the state of Michigan, and how do you see this thing playing out?
Well, it's a heated presidential primary, Brian, and the one thing you really don't want to do is, in this volatile environment, is try to speculate as to what's going to happen on Election Day. We've seen a lot of the voters have made up their minds late. I think that in many ways, while people get concerned about that, I think it shows that the American people in the Republican primary and later in the general know we're in a very difficult transformational period of time, and they want to make the right selections for who are going to be their servants, especially when you talk about the commander-in-chief and you talk about the chief executive officer of the United States. So I think you're going to see it continually. See the polls stay very close, and I think there'll be a late break. And as a Romney supporter, I hope it goes to my guy. But if it doesn't, I would hope that as the process unfolds, as I said in my big government piece yesterday, that our nominee has to come from the people who had the courage to enter the caucuses and the primaries, be it Mitt, Rick, Newt, or Ron.
Well, a lot of people said the reason it's tightened up in Michigan, because for a while Santorum had a pretty healthy lead there, is that because Romney has really run a lot of negative campaigning aimed at Santorum.
Well, they'll say that, and in every primary it's like that, and it's very difficult. It's very much a fight in the family before you get the chance to be the standard bearer. And this plays into the concern that a lot of people have, is that the candidates that are running, as they differentiate themselves through what one person may say is negative and another may say is informative, is the reality is that anybody who enters that process is going to have that happen to. People who do not enter the process, as you know better than anybody, wind up not having to go through that and get to look like all things to all people.
Yeah.
And the temptation that the party faces now is to go to what many would like to see in the establishment as somehow a broker convention that takes a whole entirely new face. But what will happen is that person eventually, as they start to find out things that they do or do not like, becomes a real person, a real candidate, and it becomes problematical. And it's just, to me, it would be a complete disdaining of the votes that were cast in the caucuses and the primaries today.
Well, I read your piece on that. Here's my question for you. Doesn't it depend on who the person would come out of the convention? I mean, if it was a person who was actually more conservative than Romney or Santorum, then would it be as big of a problem as you think it is?
Well, I think it's a problem when you tell the American people you don't trust them. I think you had people in the establishment that in 1980, after Ronald Reagan was going through the primaries, you saw John Anderson and an entire segment of the Republican Party leave because they thought he was too conservative. Now we're back to the fact the people of the Republican Party now could say that you're too moderate. And to me, the point of the whole primary and caucus process is to have the voice of the grassroots Republicans heard. And they've had their opportunity, and candidates have had their opportunity to show the courage to enter the fray and try to offer themselves to serve the country in a very difficult period of time. And as I said before, everybody looks great when you're not running because no one is bothering to talk about your shortcomings, your failings, or your lack of conservatism or your lack of liberalism.
But I understand that point, and I get the courage part about, hey, these guys actually got in the race. They had the guts to do it, and they've been out campaigning and working hard to try and get the votes. But on the grassroots portion of it, we heard, and we still do hear from a lot of people who are in the grassroots that's really still aren't satisfied, and the only choice they have are the ones who actually got in the race. If they could choose anybody, I'm not sure it would be these 3 or 4 guys that are left.
Yes, well, as a party that says we trust the people, as a party that says you have free will and the entrepreneurial spirit to enter a campaign, there are always going to be individuals who are not happy. Again, there are people who are very unhappy that in 1980 Ronald Reagan was the standard bearer. And I highly doubt that as a Republican Party that claims to trust the people, especially those who have voted and participated on behalf of any of these candidates, that we turn around and say, because I do not like this, or a segment of the party does not like this, is somehow going to disregard the voices of the sovereign citizens and party members that were heard throughout this process.
The auto bailout causes a little bit of a tricky issue for Republicans in Michigan. Republicans in Michigan seem to be pretty staunchly against it, only 24% according to polling pro-auto bailout, but the state of Michigan at large, as much as 52% in favor of the bailout. If you go too strong anti-bailout in the in the primary, does that endanger your chances in Michigan? Because Obama's done a pretty good job buying off the state, has he not?
Well, it was not bought off. As you know, Mary Catherine, what happened was President Bush took the money from the Wall Street bailout. It was targeted and earmarked for Wall Street of $700 billion. And the question was, do you leave a giant smoking crater in American manufacturing base? And I think those poll numbers are low. What you're going to see now as time goes on and as Chrysler and GM continue to come back, A, we have to make sure the government gets out of them. B, that the taxpayers are paid back. But C, it makes it much easier to say that, oh, well, I'm against it now. You forget about all the white collar and all the non-unionized manufacturing plants throughout not only Michigan but the Midwest that were saved. And I think it's a mistake for the Republican Party to sit there and say that somehow this was all horrible. The United States, the arsenal of democracy, and the economic engine of the world has somehow failed to lose its entire manufacturing base. So what happens now is for Republicans, you're basically arguing that we should have let them go. Now, I think that's a very problematical argument for Republicans who voted for the Wall Street bailout to make.
Well, it is a tricky thing, though, because sort of on principle, many conservatives, including Mitt Romney, have spoken out against the auto bailout. So what is the right message for them to have?
Well, they're all in the same boat on that one, all four candidates. So to me, it wasn't a consideration when I chose Mitt, because Rick was against it, Ron was against it, Newt was against it.
Right.
But to me, the question is America, it goes back to the green eye shade republicanism. Are we just about numbers, or do we understand that a country is a complex, delicate organism of souls collected towards a common goal of living and promoting American exceptionalism? To me, a country that doesn't have a manufacturing base, and I base the original if you look at the original votes, we were diverting already appropriated money to try to save them. Which is even actually better than what happened in the 70s when Chrysler was saved the first time, is the fact that if America doesn't have a manufacturing base, if America does not produce products, we're not going to be an economic engine of the world in the 21st century. So to people, I think that many of my colleagues get that. I know Paul Ryan supported it. He understands it. And some handful of others. But when the conservatives in America don't try to conserve what is great about America, and we simply look at the dollars and cents of it, and I would make the argument that the dollars and cents that actually added up in favor of trying to give them a chance to survive and pay back the taxpayers, rather than just simply the sunk social costs that would have incurred to the safety net had everybody gone under and gone unemployed.
All right. Congressman McCotter, we appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks very much. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thaddeus McCotter here with us on the Morning Majority.